Okay, we're going to start now. I was told there's 80 guests, and I'm sorry, it must be the traffic or dinner time or something, but thank you all very much indeed for those of you who have made it on time. It's always very much appreciated. I'm just going to do a very, very brief introduction and then hand over to Tobias to talk a little bit more about Franz Ackermann and his show. But on behalf of myself, Pamela Kember, and Francis Yu, our acting head of school, I'd like to thank you all very much indeed for coming. Many thanks as well to Tobias for getting in touch and sharing artists with us at the school. It really is important for students, and I hope some of them will come, to share ideas. Also to dear friend Mr. Michael Muller-Verein for his foresight and engaging Hong Kong audiences with wider global cultures. It's really important, I think, for organizations and institutions such as ourselves in Hong Kong to collaborate and to extend and expand ourselves beyond our physical borders. Also tonight to our guest Franz Ackermann. I'm really delighted to have him come and talk to us. It was just interesting, his work I was reading has been described as exuberant, psychocartographies, sublime labyrinths, and cartoonish abstractions, which sounds a lot of art speak, but we're really glad he's back in town and look forward to tonight's talk. But first of all, I'll hand you to Tobias. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming. And first of all, this is a last for both Pamela and me doing these art talks together here at the art school. Thanks, Pamela. Thanks to the art school for giving us the space, the money, and the resources, everything. Thanks also, in that case, to Mike Müller-Verein from Goethe Institute, where we also did a lot of art talks together, and I think that worked very well. And talking about art talks, I was convinced by Franz Ackermann after an art talk, I have to say, because growing up in my time in Germany was quite an anti-painting time. I mean, there were people like Pank and whatever, Baselitz and so on, and we kind of didn't like him at all and just didn't look at painting anymore. So then when Franz Ackermann came to have an exhibition at a space where I also worked by a different institution, and he did a talk about his work, and I was sold, I have to say. He went kind of on top of my, oh, I really like that artist list. So, and it was also a good time when I came here to Hong Kong. One of the first artists I asked was Franz Ackermann, because I know he was here in the end 90s. A lot of his work is actually founded and rooted here in the city, and it made a big impression on him, the city of Hong Kong. And I always hoped that he would come back and make a show with us at Parasite. And I'm totally thrilled that he did come back, that he stayed here for such a long time, that he developed a new work for us, and that he brought a lot of his mental maps to Hong Kong. He brought them back because this is a place where he made his first mental maps, and he will talk a lot about these, I hope, in the next 45 minutes. And I'm really thrilled that he actually brought them back, that we can see him here in Hong Kong, because a lot of them were done here. None of the ones he brought back were actually done here, but they just all rooted here, and it's just such a thrill to have these works back. For me, Franz is also, we grew up in the 90s, which was a lot about topography, about internationalism, about globalism, and he's really somebody who changed the idea of maps, who changed the idea of how to look at cities, how to understand cities for me, and doing that with his mental maps, but also with his installations, is a very important part of my personal upbringing as a curator in the 90s. I had the big pleasure to work with him before in Lithuania, and I'm very happy to say hello to him here again at the art school, which when we did Lithuania together, I would have never expected to say hello to Franz Ackermann in Hong Kong. So thanks everybody for coming, thanks for listening, and yeah, to you, Franz, thank you. No, now you have two, I think. I think you don't do. 1, 2? Yeah. You don't need this one. I use that one if you tell bad jokes or something.
I would like to be dead in shark's mouth. A woman swimming under, a warm breath sending a thunder on 2 parts south. And love is stripped and free. Duty is delayed until next life. Someone has my mind, holding it so kind. It is my wife, and my home is the sea. My home is the sea. Look not for me. My home is the sea. Disaster flies upon me, and I scream. We can see the house lights, joy from the distance. Or party as the stream. Tumble into me. My arms enfold the sea. I'm a strong man. And the night of my tummy is round and firm and fine. That's what
Yes, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Franz Ackermann, and I am an artist. This was a song by Bonnie Prince Billy and Max Sweeney. Actually, we can keep the lights off, but maybe the candles.
Yeah, is it okay, just this one?
Okay.
that okay? Can you multitask?
1, 2.
1 and 2.
Yes, I just introduced my work with one song just on a movement for one simple reason, because doing my work is my artistic work is half based on traveling, which means half a year since 1991, since I was in Hong Kong, is based by moving around from city to city, from a non-city to a non-city. And the other half of the year, of course, I am a settled down and based artist with a kind of studio. And the first half, what I've shown just with a little bit of music, was all called mental maps, small watercolors, which are very tiny to transport, easy to handle, flexible, fast, intimate, private, and not at all thought for a kind of public in the beginning. So, in the beginning, when I stayed in Hong Kong, in Newtown, the question becoming an artist was very, very far away. And I started with the small watercolors as a kind of psychogram, as a notice, as something which is only true for me, which is not logical, not at all. And I didn't know that it turned out to become a kind of form. But when I was back in Berlin, for example, interest grew, how Tobias Berger mentioned already. Interest grew very strongly into my work, into the watercolor, and I feared a little bit of losing this kind of attitude to certain forms of non-flexible spaces, for example museums, for example galleries, and I decided quickly to continue with work from the studio. So what you see now in the back is one of my first museal installations. When I came back, so I transformed all my experiences in a kind of big black and white mental map in the back. I painted my first big painting for a very long time, and I put it like a big silk screen, like a big billboard on a kind of one-to-one housing model. So the white cube became reversed, the canvas became a billboard, and the whole metaphor about city or space became for me again a kind of inside one-to-one model. Very physical, exactly on that point, very important for me, that the thing with the watercolors, which runs till today, is not, have not to be forced into public spaces, into museums. There's still another form of my work to do. Opposite side, big canvas, looking from a big white wall, a museum wall, with a kind of skyline. And this all shortly happened after my stay in Hong Kong. So it's for me also a very nostalgic moment to show you this kind of paintings. Yeah, a big painting and installation in the Stedelijk Museum in Amsterdam, where you see in front a small watercolor in a completely new context. If I go back now, if it works to go back, yeah. I think it's this one. So like a big city where I lie on the ground looking up the sky, it works as a traveling mental map. And in the museum, it gets its own context. It's not anymore lost on a white wall, but it gets its own context of my own. course, a big painting can be on a white wall. This was in the Kunsthalle Basel. One of my few self-portraits in relation to a wall painting. I executed this wall painting similarly for Hong Kong. Hopefully you have time and come around on Saturday. A big globe, a kind of lightning source, questioning light surface in the context of painting. So I interrupted from one room to the other one by using a completely different medium. Here on the left side you could enter some kind of videos, kind of documentary, and a big canvas, spread it out into a wall painting, getting some metal grids in front of it, like you see it so many times in your city or in big metropolitan urban situations where they just are able to put stuff on it. And of course, I put my stuff on it, small watercolors. Yeah. Questioning the erratic form of a painting in terms of high and low, treating them like a billboard. Wall painting meets a canvas in the back, meets a projection. Yeah, and these ropes hanging down, it just looks like that you can climb over the wall, which is artificial. In the back there were glasses, and in the wall painting there were small holes so you could look through the park, like an artificial film which became real, which was in Ghent. This is in Torino, Castello di Rivoli. Again, watercolors in the back, but reconfigurated in the context, getting my own context instead of getting placed as an erratic, autonomous work. Yeah, something like a mobile thing with 4 wheels, but it stands already upside down. I wanted to create a space where no mobile phone, no computer, no web, VLAN or whatever is definitely not working. So I told my friends and technicians, I want to create a one-person cell where all these global contacts are definitely not working. The watercolor was in the end, at the entrance. This was the entrance. The inside. So it's a very mental room with a lot of metal, trash, and one seat. And an early painting. Those I do in my studio in Berlin, half a year I paint, more or less, let's say, and half a year I travel, and I even finish some watercolors here at my stay in Hong Kong, and I hope I can finish them till Saturday to show it. Yeah, I call this series of first paintings evasions, which is the opposite form of invasion. So you don't attack, a territory. It's just like you empty a territory, you leave a territory. It's not a widely spread terminus, but I thought it is a very nice terminus for my paintings, which I do in the studio while I'm standing in front of it, and the watercolors I do in the hotel, I sit very closely in front of it. There are two different attitudes. One more. I'm not sure, it's an early one. On the top right, I remember the house somewhere from Brazil, but maybe someone can remember. This was a kind of model at the Star Ferry Pier in Kowloon. On the other side, at Kowloon side, it was a huge model thing. On the bottom right, I'm not sure, some 17 years ago. This grey piece. Yeah, this makes me very flexible in terms of invitations. For example, if Toby Berger invites me to Hong Kong, he never knows what to get. So it is, for me, a very open thing to travel and to say I have one small watercolor or I have a huge installation. So I think it was the right decision to stay very independent in terms of my character of works. Very constructive, very non-emotional, conceptual almost, color fields. For me always it was important, this famous quote of Barnett Newman, who is afraid of red, yellow and blue. So there is not much talking in my work, no much figurative work, no portrait, only some self-portraits. And there's a very complex situation with color and form. This is the way I see also urban structures. Here, for example, this is the first room installation view of my contribution to the Biennale in Venice, which is a famous biennial, I think the oldest one. And when the curator invited me to do something or to send me this and that, I said, okay, I come, but all you have to order is a room exactly in this size. Not very big, I wanted to have it in a corner, exactly 6 to 7 meters a room, and the rest he must sign that he accepts everything. So it was very strange for the curator, but he built me one small room, and without telling him I went to Venice 4 weeks earlier than usually artists and the artwork comes. So I was a tourist in Venice long before Venice Biennial opened. And all watercolors you see there now, I did in Venice. So he was pretty much annoyed when I showed up as a tourist, when they were very, very busy fighting for the budget or whatever. And he asked me, Franz, what the hell are you doing here? It's too early. But I just lived as a tourist in the city and designed this room, created this room, made a wall painting together with my brother, and all what I needed from Berlin was this strange lamp. But the watercolors I did one-to-one at the Biennial. And this is till today an element of time which collides directly into living time, working time, showing time, installing time. So there is no difference anymore with transport and so on. Second corner. So the curator even didn't know what's coming next. We painted it light blue, then we started with the skyline on the bottom. Suddenly there was this lamp. And 3 days before the opening I started bringing together some watercolors. And it was very, very hot. Even hotter inside than outside. Because Italians are not very generous with air conditions. Small installation, a big bag. Yeah, and then in detail, maybe one bag, in detail now, the watercolors, which became an installation on its own, a very physical room. The whole room is one work. It is away forever. Someone bought it. And suddenly the mental map, the private, intimate form of notation, how I see the city while I'm traveling, becomes a whole installation, a sculpture, a physical moment, an absurd big thing for someone else, hopefully, and strange thing somehow for me till today. And these are the details of the small paper sheets. Yeah, on this one maybe you see it was the time of almost perfect surveillance. The terror attacks in the States were not far behind us, so everywhere there was fear from every bag. So that's why this single bag is standing and hanging around in my room. Everyone just was wondering. And of course, as far as I see now, it looks quite threatening too. Yeah, after when Tobias Berger invited me to do this show now, it's my third part of something which I want to show in September in the Kunsthalle St. Gallen in Switzerland, where I bring together finally new works on canvas, installation, and the new watercolors. Till then, hopefully, are back to show them over there. Big freak wave. Housing, heavily guarded housing, let's say like this. Some parks. Like from outer space, meteorites, something like that. I don't know. Big installation in Berlin, different layers, so suddenly the billboards, the layers, the surface gets different perspective. It becomes very physical, but it's all done and all questioned about surface. And here for the first time, 4 or 5 years ago, a watercolor, very small watercolor, can go into competition with a huge canvas and a wall painting. So the dealer asked me if this is an equal competition, I can make the price for the watercolor the same like for the canvas, right? I said this is a difficult question till today. Other corner. Yeah. A museum in Munich. And you see this ornament, like in the beginning from the 90s, I resettled it down there forever, so it's a quite prominent place, because in the left room they have an early Joseph Beuys installation, and on the right room they have an early Gerhard Merz installation. Well, so I'm in between these both Germans. Detail from a canvas. I just want to mention shortly, it's a very, very time-consuming artwork. So it takes time. An installation in New York. The billboard becomes a stage, like a big turban on the right. Two paintings were there, with a silver horse. It's a logo from an engine, power engine motor, with two watercolors. LA Mocha. Very huge installation, because the room was like, I asked the curator to give me his worst room, and he was very happy about this invitation, because there's a big gate in the back and no ceiling, and because I wanted to see how flexible I am with all my elements of big drawing, hanging a monitor down, which is a canvas. See here. The paintings are on wheels, so you can move them around. A canvas from the Biennial in Sao Paulo. Kind of waterfall. Kind of gate as a canvas. At the airport maybe. It was in Athens then. So after a while, like I talk now and I remember myself, it's funny for me because the heavy stuff, the big paintings, the big installation start traveling on their own. So without me, sometimes it shows up and I get invited to an opening and I never heard about it before. And they are more in the plane, the canvases, than myself. But this is a nice boat because it's the last painting, and hopefully I see you on Saturday at my opening, and I tried to make it not too easy for you. Thank you.
Questions? I didn't ask you before if you can accept questions and answers, or if you want to have a beer. No, Franz.
Can I ask you about the sort of practical side of your life as an artist?
Thank you.
Can I ask you about the practical side of your life as an artist? I mean, do you work when you feel like it? You work every day? Are you under pressure to produce all the time from your dealer or from the galleries? Do you, are you happy still painting? Is it a great life that you have? Tell me about that kind of thing. You have a big studio or staff. Do you paint it yourself? Do you get involved in the business side of the art? That kind of thing I'm interested in.
Yeah, of course there's one.
There's one elementary difference now to my beginning. It's first of all the economical side. Of course, it changes. I sometimes mention economical money is the first creative thing for an artist, right? And my studio in Berlin grew and grew, of course, it's a bit bigger than 10 years ago, but the demands for traveling, they are pretty much the same. So doing my watercolors in a hotel doesn't mean that I'm looking for the high-end, super slick hotel, because you can't work there, because at every corner someone tries to give you a helping hand. It's impossible to get lost. The third thing, the economical fact, the choreography, to be able to be an artist. Like beginning here in Hong Kong, after 2 weeks I was trying to get some jobs, of course, because the money was not there. I gave papers away for Burger King or something like that. So doing continuously artwork is the second form of becoming another person. And having the luck to become economically successful. The third version and the third most dangerous stage, I would say to every artist, is the market. Suddenly someone puts economical value into your artwork, which changes again, or tries to change your attitude. And I hope I'm strong enough to keep that away. Yeah. And this is it for the moment. For me, it is still not clearly finished where the fuck I want to go. I was 3 months ago for 1 month in Iran, in Tehran, and of course it could be very interesting to talk with you about my experiences in Tehran and going down to Shiraz and to Isfahan. And it seemed to me that there is only one idiot in the whole country, and unfortunately it's the one which we have to listen to. But a lot of people I met, they are very, very disappointed and angry about their image they have in the rest of the world. So I work on that even when I wake up in Hong Kong. Yeah? Starting with a watercolor there doesn't mean to finish it there. I can finish it here, even starting with some which I started 5 years ago. It's a very, very fluent, simple thing, very simple. I try to keep it simple. I try to keep the mobile phone off when I work. Totally.
Not only if he works, most of the time it's actually off. You can never reach him, which is Franz's gallerist is crazy. But what I did not mention is that he also is, Franz is a professor in Karlsruhe at the art school since 5 years? 4 years? 5, 6, 7 years now, right? Yeah, 7 years now.
The fourth thing which changed, how to teach, of course, no? And how to tell them that I'm away for 4 weeks, but then I'm staying there as a block. So they agreed with me that I can't change now my attitude of traveling, but I show presence, I think so.
More than most of the teachers, I would say. When you're there all the time. Any other questions in the public?
I'm just interested in that idea of switching off the mobile phone because Paul Chan, who was born in Hong Kong, living now in the States, he talks about this notion of the burden of interconnectedness. It's a burden, and the idea is, should we shut ourselves off? Is it part of what you do to, for example, take your watercolors to the scale that they are and take them everywhere, whereas your larger works are so Wagnerian, it's almost like they have to stay where they are. So is there an interconnectedness between your scale and your disappearance in a way from those two?
I'm not sure to get exactly Paul Chan's attitude on that, but I try to describe mine. But I think simply one of the biggest things which come to almost humankind is this Russian word multitasking. I think it's not widely spread these days to make only paintings or to be so strongly visual. So focusing on that point about the back of the history of an abstract painting, for example, I need my full energy to step one small step further to the next one to develop my work. If I put in all these things, email, mobile phone, I sometimes just feel like a fireworker who is in permanent presence of getting ringed up. And maybe like every one of us has this feeling already to be in a profession like a fireworker some 20 years ago. This was a form of profession, I think, to be ready for someone else. And today, I think it starts getting a bit complex now. I've heard even structures in the States, could be elsewhere, but they start now to fight lunchtime. So to minimize lunchtime for the job. So which means during lunchtime they could do this and that on the mobile, this and that by email, this and that by that. And I think it's just a question of culture, to how much tools you wear around. Yeah.
I was just wondering, what is your motivation for your choice of medium?
No, I have.
It would work, but it's fine like that. I like Toby walking around. There's no cable, but he's walking around. Motivation and media, you mentioned. Motivation is just like biographical. If I remember very personally, my first day after studying art, getting thrown out from Europe, arriving here in Hong Kong, the first motivation was to look, to visit the tourist spots, to read, to write postcards, to meet friends, to learn how to communicate. There was a simple thing, and it is still today a simple thing. And if I prefer to watch a horse race or a soccer game instead of making a watercolor, this is still today the same attitude. The motivation just comes, maybe an old-fashioned word, it's my passion. I like to do that, actually. And it doesn't look like this lecture, but I like to even have my mouth shut for a couple of weeks, even. Yeah? And there was once a nice situation. My brother was driving me in a car. My gallerist called him, because he couldn't find me. My brother told him in the car, he's with me in the car. And he was shouting to my brother, for fuck's sake, what the hell is he doing in a car? Sorry, I can be in a car traveling without making artwork, so he must wait. And the motivation, if it runs out, I think we should all do something new if motivation runs out. And having this moment with a brush to see it with a motive, this is it. I can't tell no. It's a very, very sexy thing, starting from a very, very difficult thing, an empty sheet, which is the most ridiculous, stupid thing you can imagine. But after 3-4 layers, if it's something develops, it's really coming out to the point. Huh? And maybe they were all of them. I have made all in all maybe 200, 150. There is not too much though. I enjoy it actually.
Hi, you're traveling all the time, and I just wanted to know, how do you decide where you're going next? And then also, as well as sort of mental images of the city, do you actually keep records of them? Do you have an archive? Do you actually take photos of cities, and do you keep that for sort of research purposes at home when you're doing your work?
When we went through this afternoon through my CD, I erased a lot of photos in between, because for a simple reason, the last photos were from some billboards from Tokyo, and very clever I am, why should I really show you some billboard photos from Tokyo? In average, 10 days, a stay, 1 month, there are hundreds of photos, but they never get transformed into an artwork, like an artwork. So it is a kind of sketch memory. It is mostly, today I bought a tripod, I put it in the gallery, my tripod, the curator came around, showed his tripod. Thank you. So I need a tripod sometimes only for a videotape, for one sequence. This can lay around for years and ages, and it's far away to get archived. Yeah, my main gallery archives the watercolors and the paintings. The photos are a big sketchbook. Yeah, and in the beginning, the other question. In the beginning, there was curiosity to travel, adventure maybe, yeah, to go, to leave. Like everyone should have these interests. But then in between the work, what is complexity, what is color, what is form, suddenly you start having questions on your own artwork, and one very simple one, for example, for Tehran, for Iran, for the desert, you can easily see with my lecture tonight, I've never made a poor brown painting, for example. Brown color is just the big threat to my work. I've never made a snow painting, for example. I've never did a good white painting, another threat to my work. So I decided to go there. On the one side, this urban question about the main city, Tehran, but on the other side, they have huge mountains, going skiing, and they have on the other side the desert. And sometimes it's only a question about color. Sometimes it's only a question about peace. When Arafat and he got the Nobel Prize, it was a very good time to travel not the Far East, the Middle East, going to Damascus, going to all these places. And 3 months later, it was gone again. Today, no one is able to go to the south of Beirut, for example. And all these kind of questions are coming quickly and disappearing quickly. My plans for end of the year is Bombay. I never was in India. A lot of tourists in Hong Kong I met, they leave for India. I went from here back overland through China and through Mongolia and Russia with the train back to Germany. So I want to do end of the year maybe some India.
Oh, okay. 1, 2.
Franz, your work is to me, it's very architectural and spatially driven. Have you ever thought of maybe doing architecture? And the other question is, what do you think of architects doing art?
I'm not jumping into your trap. Architects, as I like, think about, for example, to the movies of Godard. I got the chance to work a little bit with Dan Graham, an early conceptual artist, and he taught me a little bit about the view, not so much about material, but the view. of the reception, of the visitor, of the man. And of course, his work was based a lot about transparency, mirrors, proportion. Using this question, proportion, as a question which is as important to me as an artist, as a private man, but also to an architect, then I could easily feel to become an architect. What I can't stand as an architect is to work with this solid definition of material. Yeah? Because this form is exactly that where I am weak. I want to have this surface, the visual. Next June I do a huge wall painting. It was a long way to negotiate, but next June I do a huge wall painting in New York on a very, very prominent site. Almost everything is signed. It was very difficult for me to be in this stage already signing something which only handles the surface of something very prominent. So the question is, I have to know these architects or the architectural qualities, and here is the trap. Of course, I can't accept architects who do too easily the reverse. Yeah? To create something on the surface much too fast, much too easily, much too non-reflective as a gesture. I'm not talking about the first sketch or the first signature. I'm really thinking about a profound way to make something very, very precise, right? And of course, we discussed that already. It would be very interesting to know what Le Corbusier would think about Hong Kong, for example. Yeah. Rem Koolhaas, for me, a very interesting example between building and thinking. And sometimes I think he should rethink the thinking, and then from rethinking the thinking, he should rethink the thoughts about printing, and then from printing, the book already is in his way for something tricky.
Thank you. I found your work that you did for Venice Biennale very interesting in the sense that you were there 1 month before the show. I have two questions. One is that, was there a lot of stress for you? And if so, how do you manage that as an artist? And second question is that, is it important for you to finish the watercolor paintings at the location you're visiting, or it doesn't matter to you whether you finish it elsewhere? Because from my own traveling, I think the notion of the location or the city I'm visiting changes when you depart and or when you're there. It's very different. So there's two questions.
Of course you got right, it's shifting permanently, so I'm not finishing as a one-to-one thing. I'm going to Hong Kong, do that, execute that, going out with a product. It's not possible. So I have a big, let's say 40 sheets of mental maps with me. 20 are totally empty, 5 are a little bit on it. Yeah, I could show you some disastrous ones from the desert in Tehran. It looks still just light brown. It's just like nothing on it. It is stupid. But it travels with me. Maybe I put a skyscraper on it, no problem. But it is really in all stages, like in my studio, and can travel with me. Sometimes even it changes, and it goes very fast when I clean up the watercolor. When I clean it every half a year, suddenly some old colors show up, original colors show up. Maybe this is the solution. Not anymore the view of the city, sometimes very small things. Yeah? And the stress to make a show, for example, here, and Right now there are 4 shows running. I was on 4 openings the last 6 weeks. I work so-called with a double floor. Even Tobias, as a curator, there is no need that he knows that. But I always ask myself, I do a wall painting, but what can I do if I fail? So I always check the second one. And like in Venice, for example, I knew exactly, after all, I have a light blue empty room with a very massive threatening globe lamp, which is already something. And then I started, yeah, because like Francesco de Bonanno, the curators mentioned, Franz, they all criticized me so heavily about my nice biennial, and he gave me all the newspaper, but there was no written one sentence about my work. So it's funny. So terms of publicity are always overestimated, which gives me a certain form of relaxed attitude. Yeah? And just to come back why I mentioned Godard, I forgot. Dan Graham showed me again Godard and showed me very precisely that always the actor is stronger than the architect. It's a very funny thing in French movie that the protagonists are acting. They're all dying at the end, but they are never suffering. And for me, it's a kind of idol.
Yeah, one more question. And, yeah, I'll bring it back.
Okay, hi. I want to ask that as an artist, how do you see or how do you feel about a city like Hong Kong? How do you feel it is?
This is a very, it seems it's a simple question, but it's a very, very important question. And I try to make it as precise as possible. And to make it very direct. Because I think every kind of change, technically, digitally, information, communication, everything hits Hong Kong in 1 second. And after one night, Hong Kong business people are faster than the rest of the world. So what gets me really angry, and this is my really honest stand, is that Hong Kong doesn't act in terms of contemporary art as what we all should deserve. And now it's very difficult, I think, for Hong Kong to stand in competition to knowledge of having a contemporary art museum, because I think in all other aspects it's still so much information already in town. And for me as an artist, I would really love to have more information about what's going on in the art world, because it's not at all like it looks like that we're only reacting after these huge developments. It is something really Hong Kong could use, and even in an economical way. The ideas of artists are still very important, huh? And I think for sometimes there is too less information about contemporary art. But maybe I'm wrong and every one of you is Googling everything, I don't know. It's just my Stonehenge attitude. But I don't understand why in the public houses, why you just don't ask a huge museum like the MoMA, just lend us 400 pieces, and definitely the other end of the line would be, of course, no problem, we ship it over right now. You just have to ask. It's unbelievable. Everyone asks, they send the half MoMA to Dubai, no problem. You just have to need someone starting from mid-level, I don't know, just to ask, you want to have 40 Van Gogh. Let's start with that. Very simple. I promise you have it next month. Really, it's truth. It starts traveling like us. The MoMA show in Berlin was a huge success. 1 million visitors, economically, the pride of Berlin, MoMA, New York. It was bad for us young artists, because after that no one wanted to see our young work. But it was good for the young artists who couldn't travel to New York. Yeah, just very simple and with clear words, because I'm running out of patience on that point.